More on the latest developments in all of this, we are joined by Sari Makdisi, a Middle East analyst and author of the book Palestine Inside Out, An Everyday Occupation. He is in Los Angeles, and we are also joined by Hussein Ibish from the American Task Force on Palestine. He is in our Washington studios. Well, Mr. Ibish, I'll start with you.
Sure thing.
Are you encouraged at all by Hillary Clinton and George Mitchell's statements prioritizing U.S. efforts in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict?
Cautiously, yes. I think you have to be very cognizant of the extremely difficult road that lies ahead. I think the Israelis and the Palestinians are obviously not ready to sign an end of conflict agreement, and there's a great deal of not only diplomacy but pre-diplomatic work that needs to be done. So it's a tall order, but there's no question that the Obama administration has been confronted with a crisis that reminds it that you can't put Palestine on the back burner, you can't manage the conflict, you can't give it a low priority. It's always going to come back and insert itself because it is so central to everything. So I think they've been confronted by that from the outset. The appointments of Mitchell, of General Jones at the National Security Council, some of the statements by Secretary Clinton at her nomination hearing, and by, of course, President Obama, are positive. So, certainly it's a long way to go, but I think it's a promising start, yes.
Mr. Makdisi, is this a new approach or more of the same?
It seems to me more of the same. I'd like to share Hussein's enthusiasm for what's been happening, but the problem is that it really does sound like more of the same. And it's not the first time we hear an American administration pledging support for the creation of an independent Palestinian state. This talk has been going on for almost 2 decades now. The point is that as talk continues, the Israelis continue to build and expand their settlements in the West Bank. Yeah. And East Jerusalem, and to continue to make life utterly impossible for Palestinians in Gaza. Right. And so talk is one thing, and what's going on the ground is a totally different thing. And the problem is that neither Fatah nor Hamas have a way out of the current dilemma. Fatah has thrown its lot in with continuing negotiations more or less indefinitely. Hamas has a sort of resistance viewpoint which doesn't seem to move us forward. It sort of wants to hang on to where we are now. And neither really seems to have the way forward, and that's what Palestinians need. They also need a way to unify the people that transcends the geographical distinctions between the occupied territories, the Palestinians living as second-class citizens inside Israel, and of course the great majority who are outside in exile or refugee camps and so forth, and the diaspora.
Well, I actually agree with almost all of that, but I think that the difference here is that because of the Gaza war, I think people in the Obama administration and in the rest of the international community are going to have to be faced with the fact that Palestinians have to choose between 2 absolutely contradictory political programs that Sari just referred to. The program of the PLO to negotiate an agreement, which I agree thus far has failed to bear fruit, and particularly with regard to the settlements has been a failure, and the policy of confrontation until victory by Hamas that we see the results of in Gaza. I think a settlement freeze is absolutely essential. I think that the centrality of the need for a settlement freeze is going to become apparent in the coming months to the Obama administration and hopefully even to the Israelis. And I think it is ultimately a sine qua non for the Palestinians. There can't be diplomatic progress for the Palestinians without a settlement freeze, just as for the Israelis, there can't be progress without improvement on security. And these 2 things can be balanced. And by the way, the Arab states can be brought in through operationalizing the Arab Peace Initiative. There's a series of quid pro quos tied to settlement freezes. Not diplomatic relations, but diplomatic progress for Israel tied to a settlement freeze. There are ways forward, but I do agree with Sari that as long as settlements are being built, that really does make diplomacy seem absolutely pointless.
And let me jump in here, gentlemen. Mr. Makdisi, who is ultimately responsible for bridging the gap between the 2 Palestinian factions? You talk about those deep divisions. Is it the U.S.'s responsibility or the Palestinians themselves that need to try and bring those 2 sides together?
What we have to take into account is that if we frame the choice as a choice between Fatah, which basically means submission to Israel, and Hamas, which means endless resistance and not moving anywhere, that's to frame the whole question in false terms. Palestinians are a people of 10 or 11 million people. They're not just the people living under occupation. The work that Hussein has referred to, that is the choice between Fatah and Hamas, refers to the people living in the occupied territories. That's actually a minority of the Palestinian people. There's a great deal of activism going on inside Israel by Palestinians who are second-class citizens of the state, and also by Palestinians in exile. And to me, to my mind, the important breakthrough is going to come when Palestinians as a people unify themselves, not by going either to Fatah or to Hamas, but rather by transcending these geographical differences and looking for a claim or looking for an objective that unifies them all. And the one that's been proposed that really does match what everybody needs is the declaration that's rapidly gaining support for a single democratic and secular state, which would end the second-class status of the Palestinians who live in Israel. It would end the exile and the denial of the right of return of those who are refugees, and it would obviously end the occupation and allow those who are presently under occupation to live a normal life.
The problem is
what it does is it would well, Hussein, let me finish. What it would do is it would allow the Palestinians to find their freedom as one people and to recognize the fact that neither the Israelis nor the Palestinians are in a position to get rid of the other. They have to find ways to live together in equality and with a sense of justice that everybody can adhere to.
And Mr. Ibish, just 15 seconds left.
Well, it's a lovely idea, but it's absolutely out of the question, because if the Israelis are fighting so hard to preserve the occupation and won't allow Palestinians political power in 22% of Palestine, they're certainly not going to cede power or agree to sharing power in 100%.
It's not what they want.
Hold on, let me finish. I think the only plausible thing is for an agreement for two states. That is actually achievable. There is a perfectly plausible strategy for it. And by the way, the argument between Palestinians is not between a single democratic state and a Palestinian state. It is rather the Islamist agenda of confrontation versus negotiation.
Gentlemen, I am the one that's going to have the final word, sadly. I'm going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Do appreciate you joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well,